Listen up, real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and agents. You're in the right place, unlocking the secrets to real estate investing and entrepreneurship. Welcome to the Titanium Vault, hosted by RJ Bates III. Here's RJ.
Welcome to the Titanium Vault, guys. I'm your host, RJ Bates. Today I'm sitting down with Paul Thompson. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. So, I'm excited to have you on because I always find stories about people that found a way to, leave corporate America and get into real estate investing full time. I always find those super inspiring. I guess I don't really consider myself a guy that left corporate America because I don't know if I had a high enough qualified job to be considered that, but those stories always resonate with me. So take a second to kind of briefly tell people about, the beginning of your journey and how you got into real estate investing.
Sure thing. So I was a corporate drone. I, did all the traditional corporate America plan where you go to college, you get a job, and by the age of 22, my life plan was complete. I was facing down this barrel of having to work for the next 40 years. And I thought, what is this really what I planned to do here? Is this really what life's about?
Right.
But at 22, I did not have the wherewithal to know there were other paths. So I did what the default plan is to just kind of settle into your job, make the most of it. And I, got married, had kids, got a mortgage, and got fat. And it took me about 15 years of living that life, what's so sneaky about it is that it's not a horrible life compared to most of the world. It is actually a fantastic life. So keep it in perspective, but it's not a life of abundance. It's not a life of freedom where you get to control your own time. You're being lured into a snare. And I kind of realized that I was in this real world matrix and that I was a wage slave. Yep. And so I had to figure out a way out. And I looked for into a lot of different things. And after doing a lot of research, then I landed on real estate. I could buy some houses here or there and just kind of step my way into it and kind of create a transition plan versus just pulling the ripcord and jumping off and seeing if I can build my plan on the way down.
How many people in your life when you were working the corporate job were telling you, you're living the American dream, you're making good money, I'm so proud of you? Was that kind of something that was common in your life?
Yeah, that's the dialogue that goes on in that world. You're what your peers are. You live up to the expectations of your peers, and everybody around you is working and earning money and spending more than they probably make, and they're probably up to their eyeballs in debt. And so you don't know that there is another way to view the world until you branch out and see that there are alternatives. And it's funny to think about real estate as being an alternative, but I think now it should be like that should be the default plan. But that's the realization it took me far too long to make. Right.
I remember, and I love my parents, right? But I remember when I got promoted to general manager of that pizza restaurant that I'm not allowed to say, that they took me out to dinner. They bought me presents for my desk. Like I became the general manager of the TCU restaurant. Okay. Mm-hmm. So they bought me a little horn frog to go on my desk, some decorations to go on the wall, and they were just so proud of me. And I remember several years later when I told them, hey, I'm starting my own company, which, mind you, my parents are entrepreneurs. Like, they've owned their own business since 1992. The look of fear on their eyes and, are you sure that's what you want to do? And it's so surprising to me that so many people have that reaction compared to, hey, I'm going to work this job for the next 20, 25 years. And I'm going to make X amount of dollars. And the best thing that I could possibly do is be one of the best at my job and maybe earn a bonus that gets taxed to all hell. And I barely get anything out of it. It's just, it's crazy that that's what we, and here's the thing. for a lot of people, that is the American dream. But for
Yep.
people like you and I mean, it's just not, and we wanted something more. So you kind of came up with a plan, an exit strategy by buying some real estate. Talk about that, and what did that look like? Were those rentals, owner finance, lease options? What did those look like?
Yeah, I've done about everything under the sun when it comes to single family, but I started with just buying rentals. And I bought, like in Little Rock, Arkansas, where I live, a house for $30,000 that I borrowed private money from, put 10,000 of my own money into it, and then I refinanced it with the traditional bank afterwards, a local commercial bank,
Yep.
and pulled all my capital back out, repaid the private lender, and it's the buy and refi strategy that's been around forever.
Right.
And I did that and have about $150 a month of residual income that I still have from a property that rents for $650, and I have no money left in it. And I thought, this works. This is probably not the class of neighborhood that I'm going to spend my time in, but the theory worked, and I liked that approach, because if it had gone badly, and it didn't go perfectly, but if it had gone really sour, it wouldn't have bankrupted me. I would have been able to recover from that experiment. So I look at doing any sort of business as doing really small tests and putting it out in the marketplace, testing it in the real world, and say, okay, this worked, this didn't work. Okay, let's make an adjustment and let's keep going. And you just constantly make refinements. And that's what I did with all these different techniques: owner financing, subject to, lease options. You name it, I've done it. And there are pros and cons to each mechanism.
Yep.
And each technique. And I really am a big believer in not being overly technique driven, but more learning how to find access to deals and finding access to money and knowing how to piece them together.
Oh man, I love what you just said there, because I'm the same way. And I get asked now to go speak at masterminds and events and things like that. And I always ask them, I'm like, do you really want me to be like super technical? Because that's really not like what I'm passionate about, and I think a lot of times people get too wrapped up in like, okay, I need to know every last little detail of how to do an owner finance transaction or a subject to transaction. And whereas that's important, there are people out there that you can lean on and ask for support that should be a part of your team, be it, your title company. If you're in an attorney state, the attorney, you can ask questions and they'll walk you down that path. And if you've surrounded yourself with the right people, the technical side of things will get answered. But what will never get answered is surrounding yourself by networking and bringing in deals and just opening up opportunities for yourself. So I wholeheartedly agree with what you just said there. You talked about that first deal that you did, 30,000 and rents for 650. I mean, that's a 2% deal. And you kind of brought up, it's not necessarily the neighborhood you wanted to be in, but that's kind of the nature of real estate. If you're going to get those high rental spreads, those 2% deals, which what I mean by that is the rental income, the gross rental income monthly is 2% of what you're paying for the property.
Right.
If you're going to get those, you're going to be in those lower class areas. So when you got started, is that kind of what you found was your niche, was staying in those D, C class areas where you were getting those 2% rentals, or did you immediately start transitioning to nicer areas?
I definitely made the transition, but it wasn't immediate because I was still learning techniques. And unless you have $1 million piled away that you can go invest, it's hard to buy Class A properties with debt that you can actually cash flow.
Right.
And so there's this trade-off between the class of neighborhood you're in and the amount of cash flow you get. And Class A properties are fantastic. They just don't cash flow very much. You have a much better chance of getting capital appreciation, though. So it depends on your season of life. And so I was in a season of life where I was just getting started. And so I bought C-class properties. I would stay away from war zones, but C-class properties. And then I learned the additional techniques that allowed me to buy Class A properties or B-plus properties. And that is where owner financing comes in. That's where sub 2 comes in. And that's where using private money comes in. So those are the 3 favorite sources for me to actually raise money. And that's the way I operate now. I hardly use banks at all anymore, other than what I already have in place, because I just don't like to fuss with them.
Nice. So how long did you buy those C-class properties before A, you left your corporate job, and B, you started, how many properties did you have under your belt before you're like, okay, I got to transition to the nicer class areas and learn some new strategies?
Sure. So I was probably 10 properties in before I transitioned into a little bit higher. And even now, I won't completely step over Class C properties. I just changed my exit strategy. And so my philosophy now is that if it's a Class C property, I buy it and owner finance it out. If it's a Class B property, I buy it and lease option it out. If it's a Class A property, I want to hold that forever.
Right. And that's a great way to do it. And I mean, again, you brought up appreciation. I mean, I'm assuming that's the reason why you want to keep those Class A properties.
Yeah, they're way less headache, and I have much long. And so I've gotten to the point now where I've got enough properties where I have enough cash flow that I don't need to actually add to my cash flow in order to be happier. I would just have to find a way to invest that money if I got more. So now I go and I'm looking for wealth building and creating additional streams of income.
So let's talk about those Class A properties real quick, because you brought up subject to, and I'm right there with you. Like, subject to is the way that you can take those down, because you can get in a position where those properties will cash flow, or there's even where, you know, I don't know if this is the case in Arkansas. Every state's different, but here in Texas, you can even take a property subject to and then sell it owner finance and wrap it.
Sure.
And so that could be a really good strategy for those Class A properties if the numbers are tight, but you're still getting into a Class A asset. So real quickly, for the people that are not familiar with subject to, can you kind of break down like just a broad description of what that means?
Sure. I'm glad you asked that, because a lot of people have a lot of confusion around it. So in real estate, or really even in just the English language, when someone says this is going to happen subject to this other thing, that is just saying with the exception to. And so I'm going to take title to this property with the exception that I'm not going to pay off your mortgage. That's all a subject to is I'm going to buy your property subject to the existing mortgage that's in place. And so there's a lot of things that you can buy sub to, but what we refer to as subject to often is just existing encumbrance, which is the access to the utility poles, and they don't think about it. It happens all the time. But
All the time.
Right. You can also buy a property subject to the existing mortgage. And that's why it's so important to understand the bundle of rights that comes with real estate. And you don't have to always sell every piece off every time a transaction happens. You can keep some or get rid of some based on what you need and what the other side needs.
Right. And you know, the thing about subject to is that you, more often than not, when it's brought up, if you see signs that this is a need for the seller, it can be a really easy conversation to have. The first time I ever heard somebody talk about subject to, I was like, who in the world is going to sell me their house subject to? Like, that makes no sense. Like,
that's the first question everybody asks. Who would do that? Well,
right.
The right kind of people will.
Well, you know, I mean, just yesterday, I mean, we were working a deal in Birmingham, Alabama, and the people in Birmingham, Alabama have already purchased their house in Dayton, Ohio.
Yep.
And they just want to be done. They don't want to make any more payments on their property in Birmingham, Alabama. And so for us, we're like, we could take it subject to. What does that mean? Well, we're going to take over your payments for you, blah, blah, blah. We go through all the technicalities of it, and we walk them through the process. And 10 minutes later, they're like, this is literally what we were talking about last night, just wishing someone would just start making our payments for us. And it's a perfect situation for them. So that's where you can really, you know, utilize the subject to strategy on nicer assets. And again, this is, you know, why I bring this up, because that's more often than not, we've used it on Class B, Class A assets that otherwise there wasn't enough there for us. There wasn't really a strategy, because between, you know, interest on your private money or closing costs and all these different things that you really avoid with the subject to, that's where it can really help you. So, you know, once you started taking down those properties, you started learning about owner financing. Is that really where your business kind of transitioned to? Yeah, I know you said you still look at, you know, Class C assets, but is that kind of where you're at today, where those are your main assets that you're looking for?
Yeah, for my buy and hold portfolio, which is one of my streams of income, my primary stream of income, I want low maintenance, high value properties, and they're one out of maybe 500 deals. I mean, I've gotten a lot pickier now about what I keep in my portfolio, because a lot of people get really hung up in how many units they have, how many doors they have.
Right.
And that's kind of an irrelevant question. It's how much cash flow do you have?
Mhm.
That's what you actually want. How much are you growing your net worth? And most importantly is, how much time does it take you to manage that asset? And for me, it doesn't take me much time to manage a Class A property. I can have property management in place, or I can do it myself. Either way, it just isn't a lot of hassle, because the likelihood of having a better quality tenant is much higher the higher end of a neighborhood you go.
Well, I'm sure all of my listeners have heard me say this at this point in time, but that is one of my biggest pet peeves. Is I go to events, I go to masterminds, I'm with people that I highly respect, and they get up and they're like, I did 102 deals last year, and it's like, what does that mean? Why does that matter? I mean, what if I did one deal and I made twice as much money?
Right.
Like, who here should be more excited, right? Like, are we in this business to have notches on our belt, or are we in this business to make money and create financial freedom? And that's the big thing for me that I always try to get across to people is, don't be excited about just doing a deal. Try to monetize it as best as you possibly can.
Right. Would you rather have 100 properties that give you $10,000 a month of cash flow, or 10 properties that give you $10,000 a month of cash flow?
Right.
I mean, what was your preference? And most people, if you really ask them that question, they say, "Oh, okay, I'd rather have 10," and that's a whole lot less work than managing 100 properties, even with property management, is a lot of work.
It is, and there's really no way to avoid it. Like you said, with property management, without property management can only do so much. You're still the owner. You still have to answer for every little thing that goes wrong with the property. And it's still your checkbook that's writing the checks for all those maintenance, the capital expenditures, the vacancies, all of those things. They still fall on your shoulders. So it's there's always that stress there as you add volume. So I know one of the things that you kind of have created, and you're big on, having a new money mindset. There's like 5 things that, the listeners can do today to have that new money mindset. What are those?
Sure. So I talk a lot about the mindset and mechanics of real estate investing, but it starts with the mindset first, because that's what I had to change in my life, and what I learned, and what I've learned as a result of actually going through the process of becoming a real estate entrepreneur, is that you need to first, number one, separate your thinking from time from money. Time is not equal to money. We spend so much time being trained to go be order followers and go work, and we exchange our time for money. And when you separate that from your mindset, that time is not equal to money, because if that were true, then why is Warren Buffett so wealthy? He has as much time as we do. What has he done differently? He's learned to make money while he sleeps. And if you can't figure out a way to make money while you sleep, you're going to work for the rest of your life. So that's
let me ask
one.
you this on that number one. Did you learn that after you started doing a couple of deals, or did you go into real estate investing with that mindset already?
I went into it with a mindset already, but it was reinforced consistently. This idea of 100 units, and because that was my original goal, is I want 100 units and I want to have all this much cash flow. And then I learned, well, it's a lot smarter to set something up one time and create residual income over time, versus trying to go and actually work, like going and turning the wrench and doing the work yourself. That's not where you generate wealth. Where are you going to bring the most value? And it's not in you actually physically using your body to turn the wrench. That's the wrong kind of thinking. And so as you grow as becoming an entrepreneur, you stop working in your business and you start working on your business. And you like, what you should be thinking about is marketing and making sure that your deal flow is continuous, and how can I be optimizing and doing this by eliminating, automating, and delegating tasks. There you go.
All right, carrying on. What's number 2?
Switch from looking for piles of money to finding streams of money. And this is a really big thing that a lot of wholesalers and fix and flippers have to work on. And so there's nothing wrong with doing wholesaling or fix and flipping, so long as you're doing it within the confines of the law. What I'm talking about is this idea of we all think that we want to build up this big pile of money and then live off of that pile of money. Well, what you really want is a steady stream of cash flow. And so you want to switch from creating a pile here and then going out and working again and creating another chunk of money. You would rather have steady streams of income from a variety of sources, and that's what generates real wealth.
Absolutely.
So number 3 is value is subjective. And so back to the question of the sub 2 is, who would sell their house subject to their existing mortgage? Well, in their situation, they would, because of what's going on in their life, because value to them is subjective. And the way I often demonstrate this is I ask the question is, what is RJ, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Oh man, let's go with chocolate chip cookie dough.
Yep. It's fantastic. Chocolate chip cookie dough. So what is your least favorite flavor of ice cream? You would not eat it to save your life.
Let's go with like some, I don't know, like orange sherbet or something. I don't even know. Does sherbet count as ice cream? We're going to say it does.
Orange sherbet. Okay. So you have 2 scoops of sherbet ice cream in your hand, but I have 1 scoop of chocolate chip cookie dough.
Yep.
Would you make that trade even though I have twice as much, or
Absolutely.
you have twice as much as me?
Absolutely.
Of course, because value is subjective. Just because you have more doesn't mean that you value that the same. Right. You would rather have something that you like, and so you value it. And so any transaction that's happening in real estate especially is always exchanging value, where someone's giving up a house that they don't want, but you do want the house because you know how to manage it. And so there's always an equitable exchange of value with real estate because both parties have to sign. And so thinking about value as subjective is really important. So stop thinking for the other person. Do unto them as they would have them done unto themselves. Give them what they want, not what you want they think they want.
I love that. I love that because, you know, I say it a little bit simpler, but it's basically the same thing. Like, we're not buying houses, we're solving problems.
Yep.
And when we go in there, I'll use a classic example. I'm a part of a Facebook group. It's a community of newer investors. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm one of the senior guys in there, and they've asked me to be a part of the group to kind of just lead a little bit. And I had a property that I was looking to wholesale in Birmingham, Alabama. And I posted the property and I said, hey, I'm asking $30,000 for this property and it's rented out for $650. Literally, I'm not making those numbers up because Paul used them earlier in the interview. Those are literally the numbers. And I said, this is a great cash flowing asset. Who wants it? Everybody in the group's always talking about they want to have cash flow, right?
Right.
Now, nobody in that group tried to solve my problem. What they tried to do was get the deal exactly the way they wanted it. I had about 37 people in that group say, if you'll sell or finance it to me, I'll do the deal. Nobody stopped to ask me, RJ, what is your need in this? I need to wholesale this property for cash flow for my business because this is a new branch and that's my need. So at that point in time, they should have gone out and tried to raise private capital to purchase it and have somebody else finance it. But instead, there was nobody there that wanted to do that. They wanted to be lazy and just ask me if I would sell or finance it. So move forward 48 hours, I found somebody else not in that group that asked me what my need was. I'm wholesaling this property. I need the cash flow for this new branch. Someone solved that need, bought the property, and now they have a great cash flow asset. So again, solve problems, don't buy houses. It's the same thing you're talking about. Just add that value and change your mindset on it. You know, it's just when you do that, that's when you start to see your business really take off.
Yeah, and the best way I've found to lead with that is because if you ask somebody, "What's your problem?" they won't tell you. What you ask them is, "Tell me about your situation," right. And just listen. And when people start talking about the situation, you can glean from them. Oh, okay, I see what you have a new branch and you're growing and you just need an infusion of capital. Right. So owner financing doesn't work for you, but what would work for you? Exactly.
I mean, coming from a guy that loves to owner finance and seller finance things, I mean, it's like I would love to do that. I'm not. It just doesn't make sense now. I'm not set up in Birmingham. I don't know. I'm not going to infuse $25,000 of my own cash in a brand new branch so I can make a couple $100 on a property. Like that's not That's not in my business plan. My business plan is to wholesale property. So it's absolutely right. I mean, if someone had just spent, and really what you're talking about is like a couple of minutes, you know, and with a seller, it could be a lot longer. You know, they could have a much longer list of needs and reasons why they're trying to do things. But the whole time, when you get a seller into that cycle, that's where the money's made. That's where you're finding out, like, maybe I could ask them to seller finance this, or maybe subject to is the best way. Or just at the end of the day, maybe it's, hey, I make a cash offer, or even if you have the opportunity where it's not a good fit for you, you can even, you know, refer it to a listing agent or something like that if it's just not a good investment property for you. So there's so many different ways, but more often than not, the seller is going to tell you exactly what they need.
Yep.
Okay, moving forward. What's the fourth
Number
mindset?
4, 5 new money mindsets. You don't actually want money. You want what money can do for you. And so this really throws people for a loop because everybody says they want money, especially if they're entrepreneurial and a real estate investor. Yeah, I want money. Like, no, not really. Because if I were to give you this offer of you could exchange places with Warren Buffett, he's, I think, 79 years old if memory serves, and he's one of the richest men in the world. And if you could just change bodies with him and have all the control that you wanted, you could live the life, however you wanted, would you make that change with him, RJ?
No.
Why not?
Because he's 79 years old. I mean,
Right.
wait,
But he has all the money in the world.
Right, but it's not going to, I'm not going to lose 45 years of my life
Right.
for the money. You know, I mean,
Right.
that's where I'm at.
And that's true with most people because you don't actually want the money. You want to be able to do with your life what money allows you to do. So if you are always just chasing the money, you'll have trouble finding it. If you chase people's problems, like you were talking about, and become a problem solver, then the money will come to you in a way that you didn't predict, and you will find yourself much happier thinking about what you could do with the freedom that you bought yourself.
Right. And let's also be real, okay? Warren Buffett's got more money than that man could ever spend on anything. You know,
Do you think
I mean,
he does it for the money?
no, not at all. That guy's playing a game, and he enjoys playing the game.
Exactly.
That's what he's doing. All right,
Exactly.
what's the fifth new mindset?
You have plenty of money for all the things that you truly want. How many times, for those listeners listening, how many times have you actually truly desperately needed the money and absolutely not found a way to raise it? And this is really important when it comes to finding deals and then matching up deals to money. If you can go find consistent access to deals, you will have all the money that you ever want.
Right. And that's hard for some people to believe, you know. If you haven't gotten into a cycle of getting deals yet, it's hard for people to believe that there is that much capital just sitting around. I heard a number the other day, someone from an IRA company, and the trillions of dollars that are sitting in IRAs, or maybe it was billions. I don't know. It was more money than any of us all could ever use, and it's astronomical how much capital is just sitting around earning next to zero interest. That as real estate investors, we can solve that problem. Again, solve problems, right?
Yeah.
You know, the money's just sitting there, and they're hoping for an opportunity for someone to come along and offer a better return than what they're getting.
Lazy money. And there's a lot of people out there who would be very happy to get 5 or 6, 7% from their money if you knew how to deploy it and they had trust that you knew how to do it.
Right. So I know you talk about, you know, finding a tribe of like-minded people that could get you to greater success. Do you feel like when you say that, are you including like these people, the private money lenders that you have? Is that kind of what you're referencing there?
That's part of it. Certainly. You will always rise to the expectations of your peer group. So you need to constantly be upgrading your peer group. And that's exactly why I do podcasts. I'm sure that's why you do podcasts, is you want to meet people, have interesting conversations, and learn something. And your value to the world is equal to your network times your ability to solve their problems. So if you can solve the problems of the people that you know and the people that they know, then you will have net worth beyond your imagination.
And real quick, for the people that are, maybe this isn't resonating with you, let me go ahead and break this down on a like very specific example. I am at this point in time in my business, because we're trying to grow, time is the most important thing to me. I don't have enough time in the day to accomplish all of the things that I want to accomplish. There are newer people that either listen to the podcast, see me at a networking event, see a Facebook post of me saying, hey, I did this or that. And they say, man, I would love to sit down with RJ and take him to lunch and just pick his brain. And they literally ask me that. Now, for me, the most important thing for me is time. I don't have enough of it. And if you are trying to grow your network and be with people at another level from where you are in your career, don't ask to take their time. Find a way to make it a reciprocal relationship. More often than not, in today's world with social media, it's very easy to learn what somebody wants in their business. Mm-hmm. A lot of us are using either Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, to kind of talk about our business. So for me, I'm pretty transparent. You know what I'm doing. I'm doing deals in Dallas, Fort Worth, Phoenix, Alaska, Hawaii, St. Louis, all these places, right? If you want to find time with me, find a way to add value to my business, either by bringing me a deal or finding a way to do business with us, whatever it is, add that value first. And then next thing you know, it's like we talked about a gentleman that's working with me that he also does business in Little Rock, Arkansas. Mm-hmm. And that's how that happened. I mean, he immediately added value to my life, and now he comes in my office. He hangs out with me regularly. We're doing deals. We just bought his neighbor's house together. That's all because he made it reciprocal from the beginning. So when we talk about adding your network, just make sure you do it with, again, a forethought of what you're trying to accomplish, and put yourself in the other person's shoes. Just like when you're in a house with a motivated seller and you're trying to find their needs, find what my needs are, or find what Paul's needs are before you try to build that relationship. What are your thoughts on that, Paul?
Yeah, I totally agree. You come at it with a spirit of service. Yep. And I have a thing about people coming to me and they use that word, pick your brain. Yep. And I was like, that's not the way to approach it. If you're wanting to get somebody's attention that's at a level above you, that's not the way you lead. You lead by asking, how can I help you? And better yet, don't actually say, how can I help you? Because that then puts the problem back on them for them to help them tell you. No, go figure it out yourself. Or offer, how about this? I can go put out some signs for you, or I have a virtual assistant that I've hired in India that's really good at scraping leads. Would that be helpful for you? Can I share that with you? That is something that will get people's attention.
I'm telling you right now, if somebody did that for me, I mean, you are light years ahead of 99% of the people that reach out to me.
Right.
If someone said they would be willing to go put out bandit signs for me, I mean, that would just be like, okay, whoever you are, you've got the right mindset. And you and I talk about that frequently, where mindset is very important to us. I literally, I just met Ed and Taylor Pugh. They're out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And I loved what Taylor said. He said that when he takes an Uber and he gets in the car, if the radio is on, he asks the Uber driver to turn it off. And at one point in time, one Uber driver said, can I ask you why you asked me to turn the radio off? And he said, because I don't know what you're listening to, and my mind is the most important thing that I have. And whatever it was you're listening to was not what I chose to put in my mind, and I have to keep my mind right. And that kind of resonated with me, because I do think mindset is so important. That's why I wanted to bring up, your 5, money mindset, how you can change your mindset on it. And really just your whole story is based around you changing your mindset for your life. From leaving your corporate job to creating financial freedom through cash flowing real estate assets. That was a huge mindset leap for you and change that you had to go through. So
Very, very true.
So let's the last thing I want to wrap up with is you talk about 3 investments you can make this month to set you up for future wealth. What are those?
Number one, always invest in yourself. Before you can help somebody else, you have to invest in the intellectual capital, the gray matter between your ears. That's the most important real estate that you have, is what you know and what you can do for other people. So that can be listening to podcasts like you're already doing, reading books, YouTube, Windshield University, whatever it takes to put now the knowledge is so available. It's been democratized. You can go and get it for a very low cost, if not free. And once you invest in yourself, you invest in your network. Back to the point I was saying that your net worth is equal to your network times your ability to solve its problems. So grow and improve your circle of influence by coming with a spirit of service. The word networking can kind of feel scammy. I don't mean networking in that sense. I mean getting to know people and offering them something of value. And
Right.
when you do that, things open up for you in your life in a way that you simply cannot predict. Then you invest in assets. Number 3, invest in assets, which creates streams of income. That's when you go and buy houses, and that's when you go and buy investments that create these streams of income I'm talking about.
Awesome, man. Well, for everybody that's listening, I mean, obviously you're extremely well spoken and just an awesome mentor for people. What are the best ways that people can follow you and kind of learn more about your message?
Sure thing. So you can go to my website at pauldavidthompson.com. I'm sure you'll have that in the show notes, and it sounds like the way it would spell. And then /titaniumvault. So anybody who's listening to this, I have some free giveaways for you. One of those is my offer guide, how to make offers that sellers can't resist.
Awesome, man. And also, I have to ask you, you have your own podcast, the Ready Investor One podcast, correct?
I do. Yeah.
So when you came up with that, is that because you're A, a reader, or B, a video game player? Which one is it?
A reader, for sure. I've never had anybody ask the question that way, but that was an astute question.
Well, I had to ask. I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the notes that were sent over to me, and I'm like, I'm just gonna be honest with you. You don't talk like you're a video game player, so it has to be reader. But I'm gonna ask anyways.
Yeah, you're right. You got me. Now, but my son is 11 and he's getting a video game, so I've found that's the way I need to connect with him. So I'm having to get back into video games, and it's a dangerous world to go into because it's so immersive.
It is, and I have to. My son's 6, and he's also. We play some of the video games. But we started off by playing the video games that I enjoyed playing from my childhood. So it was like, we would go play the old Marios, some old sports games. And it's funny now because we'll go to the store and I'll be like, hey, check out this. And it'll be like an old game that I want to play. And he'll be like, no, I want to play the new games. And I'm like, oh, no, we're having to learn how to play the new games, huh? Okay. So it's funny how that works out. But Paul, man, thank you so much for sitting down with us. Just great information, very inspirational story, and congrats on finding freedom from the corporate America job and getting into real estate investing. And I can't wait to continue to watch you grow as an investor.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure being on here.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for listening to the Titanium Vault with your host, RJ Bates III. For more info and to stay up to date, visit www.podcast.thetitaniumvault.com and on facebook.com/The Titanium Vault. If you enjoyed the episode, please rate and review, and we'll catch you next time on the Titanium Vault.